Every fan of motorsports has heard about drifting, a driving technique where the driver intentionally oversteers while maintaining control and driving around corners. In its natural size, a vehicle like this costs around $1.5 million. Expensive, you bet. But don't be disappointed. There it is. This drift car costs from $100 to $10,000, and according to today's heroes of our program, it is no less complicated to drive than a real drifting car. Today we will meet Ukrainian pilots of the so-called RC drift. The name stands for remote control drifting. For me, RC drift is a way to express myself. RC drift is my mates. I've been organizing competitions for a number of years because they gather all of our friends, and this is a moment to remember for the rest of your life. The Federation of Autosports of Ukraine has been in existence since 1954. Last year we were the first in the world to give legal status to RC drift. Only half a year after us, the sport was legalized in Japan. RC drift is drifting on radio-controlled automobile models, as the name suggests. Drifting is a driving technique where the driver intentionally oversteers with loss of traction in the rear, wheels or all tires while maintaining control and driving the car through the entirety of a corner. Drifting began in the 1980s on the hairpin mountain roads of Japan. It originated in a street racer subculture. Mountainous hairpin roads mostly consist of spikes, which are sharp turns. Navigating through them by oversteering turned out to be both quicker and more fun. Then the technique was transferred to the streets and the drift subculture was created. In Ukraine, both real and RC drifting emerged almost simultaneously in 2008, give or take a year. Then we had a group of amateurs with Seryoja Snake as its head. He led the drifting championship of Ukraine. It wasn't official until 2011, as far as I remember. The 2012 and 2013 seasons were not well organized. Then in 2013 we've got the idea to somehow regulate this. That's how modern-day Ukrainian RC Drifting Championship was created. It is called the Ukrainian Drift Remote Control, UDRC.
Современный вид чемпионата Украины по РЦ-дрифту. Он называется Ukrainian Drift Remote Control, UDRC.
To participate in the competition, you need to have an RC model and special devices.
И специальная аппаратура.
The model consists of the chassis, engine, electronic speed controller, a servo, which turns the wheels, a receiver, which receives signal from the RC control, and a battery, which is installed here. Today there are more than 50 active pilots in our country who regularly train. They mostly train on weekends and participate in numerous competitions, which our team organizes. Comparing the activity of our pilots to foreign pilots, of course, everything abroad is more developed and advanced, but we also have something to boast about.
Почти во всем за рубежом более развито это направление. Но и нам есть чем похвалиться также. Развитие.
The development of drifting in Ukraine is directly dependent on the incomes of our people. The participants in this form of sport are viewed in society like children playing with toy cars, but that's totally not the case. Maintenance is fairly expensive.
Обслуживание стоит довольно много денег. Допустим, если тренироваться.
For example, if you train outdoors on the street, more specifically on asphalt, then for every training session you need a new set of tires, and that's already not a small amount of money. I got into RC drifting approximately 5 years ago, but for me it all began not with RC drifting, and not even with automodel sports, rather with ship modeling. I've been in this sport for 6 years. Actually, I don't have any outstanding achievements yet, though I'm quite confident that I will sometime in the near future. Initially, I saw a video on YouTube where people drove off-road automobiles. I became interested and found from my friends a guy who is totally into this form of sport. I bought a used RC model from him, which became my first RC drifting car. I've used it for a year and my interest drifted away from it. Pardon the pun. I was driving it alone. I didn't have any companion. None of my friends were automodel sport, and I simply got bored of it. Anton was my schoolmate, and I remember him driving his car in the school gym, testing out the new chassis. We weren't acquainted with Anton then, and when I asked him to try it, he refused. post saying something like, "Hey kid, just go and play outside," or something along the lines. Then I decided that I wanted to engage in this. It looked cool, fun, and really interesting. I bought my first RC model in the shop. I was so thrilled about my latest acquisition that the very next day I went to Anton and started showing him photos of different models on my cell phone, like this one and that one. So I bought a model. "Won't you show me the ropes? I've seen that you really know what you're doing, so show me how it's done." At the moment, we have already held 3 RC drifting classes in our country. They differ in what is called counter-steering, which is a very important setting for RC drifting and is used only in this kind of sport. This is the ratio of the rear axle to the front axle. What I mean is that RC drift models are all-wheel driven, but the rear axle revolves faster than the front one. This is what's known as counter-steering. How do the classes differ? There is a class CS 1.9, 1.3. This is when the rear axle revolves up to 30% faster than the front axle. Then comes the CS 1.3 Plus, which means that the rear axle revolves more than 30%, up to 100% faster than the front axle. And then there is the RWD class, where the models are 100% rear driven. This is what we ended up with. The class division was introduced literally last year. I've had around 10 models. Upgrading a model has almost become a tradition for every pilot, because even in our case, technological progress moves pretty fast, and models rapidly become outdated. At first, a newcomer may spend around $200–300 to build his first model. This includes the chassis, all the necessary components, the body, and everything else needed for regular driver training sessions. Today we can already boast of a special studio, where one guy, who is well known in our sport, his nickname is Revis, but his real name is Serhiy Korniets, makes automodel bodies and is considered a master of this craft. Thanks to him we have fairly nice model bodies in our movement. We also have a guy who began making various components and different features for RC drift models. To make them look really realistic, he makes garages, tables, racks, and almost everything to scale, so that in the end it will look really lifelike. There are 6 stationary tracks in Ukraine. They are located in Kyiv, Kharkiv, Bila Tserkva, Odessa, and Dnipro. And regardless of which city you live in, you can always visit the track and talk to the guys. How to find them? The easiest way is through a group in the Vkontakte social network called Ukrainian Drift RC. You can write to the moderators and they will find you themselves. They will add you to the chat where you get to know the guys. They can advise you what to buy, or they will simply invite you to watch and try it yourself.
С момента того, как у меня появилась первая модель и моего первого подиума, прошло около...
I bought my first model and my first podium around a year ago. I needed exactly a year to have the ability to compete with other pilots. Even if you don't have a training track to go and train, you can just go to any flat surface. Clean asphalt comes highly recommended, as it gives your vehicle better traction. Then place 2 bottles on the surface and start from the basics of RC drifting. Make some loops around one of the bottle, or try a loop shared like the number 8 around both bottles, and keep repeating this maneuver. When your level of training gets higher, you can confidently go to the nearest RC model track and demonstrate your achievements there, on the real McCoy. When I started doing this, I rarely attended training. I've been to training sessions maybe once in 2 months, and this was really my biggest mistake. I could go for training, get used to the model to understand how it works, and then I could easily forget everything by the time I go to the next training scene. That meant I had to go back to square one and learn all the tricks of the trade anew. Around 6–7 months ago, I started attending the training exercises on a more regular basis. I passed them with flying colors. I train every weekend, and when training is held on weekdays, I attend them as well. There are a lot of RC drifting competitions in the world. Every country has its kind of championship. Somewhere it is more developed, somewhere less so. There are also international championships, which gather pilots from all over the world. They are mostly Japanese, because Japan is the origin of drifting, and therefore it is revered by all drifters worldwide. There is a world championship held in Amsterdam. I think it is really advanced. A total of 200 pilots gather there. They must apply beforehand. They have a week to apply, after which the application process deadline is reached. It is all very strict. However, in truth it is not really official, so we in Ukraine are cooler and more laid back when it comes to this aspect of competition. Of course, I dream of stepping up onto the podium. I understand that we have really tough competition, and there are a lot of extremely skilled pilots here. The first competition I took part in was in Kyiv in 2012. This was the Open Championship of Ukraine. Maybe the first official event, which gathered more than 20 pilots from different cities of Ukraine. Unfortunately, I couldn't get further than my first tandem pass. I first stepped onto the podium in the end of 2013, also on an open competition in Kyiv. One of the most recent team achievements was our trip to Minsk, Belarus. We took first place there. That was my achievement. This trip was planned a year ago. We had 3 months to prepare for the competition, and I can say that this was enough. Aside from the win, we also made a lot of good friends there. We've met a lot of teams from other countries, and we are keeping close ties with them. The guys promised to visit our championship here in Ukraine. As any other movement in our country, RC drifting doesn't stand still. It breathes, if I can put it that way. That means some leave, some get along. That said, of course, when the highly experienced oldies, who have been drifting for 5 years, leave the competition. But they are replaced by really strong beginners that have really good training. In short, they start to rock literally from the start line.